be interviewing on this show, or I'm almost at the point of saying on your bit of the show, is someone who could tell us a little bit about sex for the disabled. So do you want to just sort of begin to pave that territory now for us?
Yes. I mean, obviously my experiences, here I'm talking primarily about my own experiences, and I am absolutely not generalising about everybody with a disability. What I would say is that many people who are disabled are in a situation where, for a whole range of reasons, practical reasons and social stigma, public prejudice, maybe in a situation where almost the only touch they experience that is not medical or to do with personal care is from people that are paying for sexual services. Most of the people I know who work in the sex industry do have a number of disabled clients, and I have seen people who have literally no independent movement, there have been people I've seen who need machines to breathe. And it's interesting to me that some people who call themselves feminists would see that what they are doing to me, and they're not doing anything because they're just lying there because they can't actually move, as an act of violence. And I'd say, ask me a question if you can.
I will, because it occurred to me many years ago when I used to go to a school that my mum taught at for disabled children, that if you've got cerebral palsy, for example, you can't even masturbate yourself.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I see people who are not able to touch themselves, and I count myself lucky that I cannot imagine what that must be like.
And are you saying that sometimes you'll charge them hardly anything because your heart's in it?
I see people on the basis that they pay what they can afford, and I've never been ripped off by somebody. I've never felt, I mean, now in terms of out calls, I do have to say I do check out more about how much it's going to cost me to get there and how long it'll take. But I feel friends of mine I know socially are people who are disabled, and it's really expensive. I mean, even if you're on the top rate of DLA, which you have to be pretty much immobile to get, being disabled is really, really costly. It's costly in terms of time, it's costly in terms of money. And so, I do feel that for people who are in that situation, I do pay them what they can afford. They do pay me what they can afford. And also, again, there are plenty of disabled people who do not need to pay for sex. I mean, you've only got to look at a recent Home Secretary who is blind to see that actually there are people who are in situations by both talent and good fortune, I suspect, whose experience is very different from that of many of my clients.
Okay. I know you're busy, but are you going to get to any galleries or shows this week?
Yeah, I'm certainly hoping so. I've not got any particular plans. I might go to the Byzantium exhibition at the Royal Academy, and that because I've read there are 3 terrific books by John Julius Norwich on the history of Byzantium, which are wonderful. So I'm looking forward to that. And I've also been to Istanbul a couple of years ago, so that's going to be very exciting. And apart from that, I'm just going to maybe go and see a loud, violent film. After dealing with the government's ideas about what would be for the best, I could really do with watching kind of lots of mindless violence and shooting and explosions.
Catherine Catt, every which way you busy yourself. Keep up the good work.
Thanks very much.
PlayRadioUK.com, part of the Something Corporation. PlayRadioUK.com is dedicated to providing you with a fully interactive website and music service. Choose from 13 stations playing all kinds of music 24 hours a day. Find answers to your technical questions. Podcast your favourite shows. Download content to your mobile phone. Interact with other users in our forum. Buy music from your favourite artists and find out who's on when and what we're up to. PlayRadioUK.com. TlayRadioUK.com. Internet radio your way.
Here she is, my sexy new MP4 player from City-Sales. The latest technology giving me music and video wherever I go in a range of stunning colors, all for just £60. And here are her matching speakers. Gorgeous! Plus picture keyrings, audio-visual baby monitors. Oh, she's so cute. And the baby's kind of nice too. The hottest audio-visual equipment straight to your door. Just visit city-sales.co.uk. City-Sales. Looking good, sounding great.
Play 2 UK, The Tommy Boyd Show.
Catherine Catt on this evening, on Francis Bacon, Virginia Woolf, and the TV show The Survivors, and also talking about her other work, which is campaigning on behalf of the UK's sex workers, and also practising sex work herself. And I can honestly say, and I've been doing this far too long, but I can honestly say that I have never lost myself so much in listening to a person who technically I'm interviewing, but I'm not. I'm just listening. Never ever lost myself quite so much in the information, and also there's a certain charm. There's a beguiling charm, isn't there, about the way in which this incredible person expresses not only their love of art, but their great respect for their work.
Yeah.
And the work that she's doing on behalf of those who are also involved in this work. And every week she just drops a little nugget into the conversation, and then moves it on so I can't go, hang on a minute. So I wanted to know, who was the film star last week who was too big for any of the condoms that she had? Did you know, Sarah, that there are 5 sizes of condoms? If you
really?
I know. I didn't know that there was 2. There's not only small, medium and large, but there's extra large and extra small.
Blimey.
I know. And who was the film star? They couldn't do it because she didn't have a condom big enough. And so that was last week. I let that one lie. But this week she just, with such guile, a dance of the 7 veils verbally, really, this time revealed that she's dated women as well. And why not? So... But it just leads you into, oh, well, I'm marking her down, going, OK, that's enough show out of Catherine through until April next year. Brilliant. Stunning. Sure you agree, listening, especially podcasting. Must be frustrating podcasting this, because sometimes you want to hear these things live so that you could jump in at any point. But there it is, Catherine Catt. We are going to be hearing more about this extraordinary person. Now, this from... Where are we?
I was just going to say, though...
Who?
Me.
Hello.
Fair play, though, for her response to the question about the tariff. Because why should she answer that question? Because people never talk about how much they earn, do they?
Well, it's not so much that. I think we've got a lot of men, mainly men, maybe some women, who just want to know what 50 quid would get them. Because there is a credit crunch on.
Yeah, but that wasn't.
And
there's
a tendency to think. There's a tendency to think that you need to be spending 250 quid if you're going to see somebody as classy as Catherine. I mean, we know, because we've seen it in the Sunday papers, that 25 quid will buy you a knee trembler on the back seat of some guy's car, or your own car, you know. Right. So we know that there is a tariff down at the bottom end for the sort of sex that I find quite sad, personally. But anyway, but would I consider spending... Well, I've talked to my wife first. But would I consider spending £250 if I knew it was going to be for an hour of the most delicious company with the most extraordinary sex being part of the deal? Then I'd have to say that'll probably be my top whack. But, again, I haven't talked to my wife about this, twice. Coming out with these things now. And obviously I'm not going to, because I'm happily married and so on. But I'm just talking about the tariff thing. Men want to know what the tariff is with somebody like with somebody like Catherine. Because we read, don't we, about American politicians' careers going down the tube because they used to spend weekends with high-class prostitutes which cost them £3,000.
Mm-hmm.
And you wonder, you know, what they got for that.
Yeah.
So I think it's a perfectly valid question, and yet I can well understand her professional response to it.
Yeah.
I think she's brilliant, personally.
I
I'd
do.
vote for her.
But as you say, there's always... I mean, she leaves me each time thinking, oh, wow.
More to find out.
Yes.
You know?
That's kind of answered a few questions.
Yeah.
For goodness, given me so many more questions.
I know. I was very lucky enough to have Muhammad Ali, easily the most amazing man who's lived in my lifetime, for an hour on a radio program. But towards the end of it, I was looking at my watch. Not because he was anything other than ceaselessly entertaining and everything. It was just that, you know, there comes a limit.
Yeah.
And you have to either go deeper, really deeper, and get into quite obscure things in order to ferret out things that nobody has heard before about Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
So there was that possibility, but I just stuck to the usual. I did say to him, I've been up all night trying to think of a question you've never been asked.
Yeah.
And he suddenly snapped alive. And he went, no way, man. No way. No way can you think of a question that Muhammad and I have never been asked. You cannot. So I said to him, all right, this is the best I can do. You're the most famous man who's ever lived in his own lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever get lonely? There was this pause. And he went, man, I have never been asked that question. And that is a wonderful question. He said, because yes, I get lonely. I get lonely when I'm on my own. I get lonely when I'm in a car with one guy. I get lonely in a lift with 6 guys. I get lonely in Madison Square Gardens with a crowd of 25,000. I get very, very lonely. But still, if I had to choose between Muhammad Ali and Catherine Cat, I'd go for Catherine Cat every time.
Yeah.
Because she's extraordinary. Our switchboard number is 01243 50...
Come on, Jimmy, who are you going to fight against when this balloon of yours goes up?
Forces of anarchy, wreckers of law and order.
See?
Communists, Maoists, Trotskyists, Neo-Trotskyists, Crypto-Trotskyists, union leaders, communist union leaders.
See?
Atheists, agnostics, long-haired weirdos, short-haired weirdos, vandals, hooligans, football supporters, namby-pamby probation officers, rapists, papist rapists, foreign surgeons, head shrinkers who ought to be locked up, Wedgwood Ben, keg bitter, punk rock, glue sniffer, Slave for Today, squatters, Clive Jenkins, Roy Jenkins, up everybody, Chinese restaurants. Why do you think Windsor Castle is ringed with Chinese restaurants? Yes.
I see. You realise the sort of thing you're going to attract, don't you, Jimmy? Thugs, bully boys, psychopaths, sack policemen, security guards, sack security guards, racialists, packy bashers, queer bashers, chin anybody bashers, rear admirals, queer admirals, vice admirals, neo-fascists, crypto-fascists, loyalists, neo-loyalists, crypto-loyalists.
You really think so? I thought support might be difficult.
Well, that was very good, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Who was that, having a rant there?
I don't know, do you?
Do we know? It's from the 60s or 70s, wasn't it? 'Cause they mentioned a few people, like Clive Jenkins, who you never heard of.
No.
Or Roy Jenkins. Have you ever heard of him? No, you're not supposed to. It's not a test.
Good, because
Hands up
you know I'm no good at quizzes.
Hands up at the back. That was very good. And Tamsin has emailed. There was something on the radio that changed my life. We talked earlier on about something on, you know, does the radio ever change your life? I don't think it should, really. But, you know. She says, it was a rainy afternoon, and it was Radio 4, and it was an afternoon play about a teacher who was about to retire. She was describing her experiences with all her children over the years. It was understated, beautiful, and incredibly moving. I was driving at the time and I had to stop my car because tears were pouring down my face. And yet it gave me a reason to carry on. Tommy, please do something on teaching today on your show. It has never been more difficult. I have 2 friends who have recently said that enough is enough. They're about to leave for other careers. And they're good teachers. Tamsin. Ooh. Do something on teach off the top of the head. Whoosh. Okay. Today's show is going to be over teaching. Good teachers, then. All right. Now, radio doesn't change your life, but teachers do.
Yeah.
So, Fiona, Sarah, or me, anybody go, or you listening? The teacher who most changed your life. Preferably for good reasons. The teacher who sticks in your mind most. The one you'd like to say thank you to, but never did. The one you'd like to meet in the street to say, look, I turned out all right. Just.
I had an English teacher once who was the most English of English gentlemen, and he had this neat, tiny little moustache. It was beautiful. And he had the most English surname, Elphick Smith, which is wonderful. His very clipped voice. And he always had a way of talking about Chaucer and Shakespeare and bringing out the sexual naughty side when really he was quite prudish, but he found it quite funny at the same time. And he was the most charming gentleman I think I've ever met in my life. And he's the last time I saw him was, I think, was my school leaving day. And he just held my hand and he said, I know you're going to do very well. And you remember things like that. Real lovely characters.
Good for him. How old would he be now?
Oh gosh, it'd only be early 60s. So I mean, he was kind of fairly,
Maybe teaching at the same school?
Maybe.
Worth getting in touch.
Yes, maybe.
Changed your life? Changed you in the inside, perhaps, a little bit?
Yeah, I think a lot of teachers, English teachers and art teachers do. Yeah. Because there's this different side to them. I mean, maths, you get lots of kind of fun science and maths teachers, but it's the people who kind of let their soul out a bit, the English and the arts. That's what I found, anyway.
Good answer. Well done, Elphick.
I don't know. Do you know what? There is no standout teacher for me. There was one teacher that influenced me in a negative way. In as much that my maths teacher, sort of halfway through secondary school, from that moment on, I hated maths. And I was always quite good at maths. But the reason he just completely turned me off the subject was because he used to ignore me.
Oh.
Because he used to do he used to focus the whole of his lesson on a group of about 4 boys at the front of the class.
Yes. Yeah.
And the rest of us, particularly the girls, we may as well have not been there. And that was always stayed with me. And if anyone ever says anything about, remind me if you talk about your teachers from school, that is the one thing that stands out because it really bothered me.
Interesting. Somebody, I think it's Mike, has emailed that comedy clip that somebody just played down the phone was from Reggie Perrin. It was Reggie's wife's brother ranting. I can remember every single teacher who ever taught me for more than just like 1 or 2 lessons. I can remember them all, every single one of them, the whole pantheon. I could actually sit and paint a mental picture of every single teacher right from the age of 4, because I went to school when I was 4 first. Miss Eileen and Miss Miss West, all the way up to the last teachers that I had. Every single one of them I can see, and I know them precisely what they did or didn't do, and whether they were right or wrong. And I think I probably knew it from the earliest age. I can just see them all now, and some of them were fantastic, and some of them were awful people who shouldn't have been left in charge of a hamster. Never mind about a class of 30 or 40 kids. It was a crime against humanity. Some terrible teaching I saw, and some fantastic moments, little moments. But there's one guy who stands out, and he stands out apart from teachers because he wasn't a teacher. And his name, we were told, you see, we had a very, very self-important headmaster. I went to Tudor Grammar School, and we had a very self-important headmaster whose name was Percival Banbury, M.A. Oxon Cantab. Okay, all right. And he really thought he had the world by the short and curlies. Anyway, he was very, very snobbish, and he advertised for a music teacher. because our music teacher had left. And he chose a music teacher from amongst the men and women who came for the job. And the reason he chose this guy was because this guy had an MA, 2 MAs from Oxford and Cambridge, and also from the University of Quebec and Montreal, and God knows where. And his name was given as John Cleese, and he was Canadian, and he was such a great musician himself that he had actually played the organ at St Paul's Cathedral.
Wow.
Right.
Blimey.
And he wore this gown, which was decorated not just with blue silk ribbon, but ermine. And the first day that he was at the school, he was up on the stage with the rest of the teachers, and he was introduced, and he stepped forward and he took this huge extravagant bow, so his forehead almost crashed onto his shoes and back up again. And then we went for our first music lesson, and I remember thinking what a strange Canadian accent this man had, because he went, "Right, dictation. Everybody write this down. Handel were the best great composer." I thought, hello. I remember thinking, hello. I was 14. Hello. This is interesting. This is very, very interesting. Then he took singing practice. The whole school would meet on a Thursday, and the whole school would sing. It was just so that the teachers could have a cup of coffee, I think. Now, he'd played the organ at St Paul's Cathedral, but he got the physics teacher to play the piano. This, he said, was because he wanted to be with us for the singing and not distracted by playing the piano. So Fatty Phillips played the piano, and John Cleese stood at the front and conducted and all the rest of it. And he put on a carol concert, and it was the best Christmas carol concert you've ever heard. He got the band from Kneller Hall. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Kneller Hall. It's like the big military music academy in West London. They sent their bloody band on the stage. And not only that, our secretary, Mrs. Hiscock, little bird of a lady, she sang an aria. And do you know what? She did it bloody well. Pia Jesus, she sang. Oh, and it was gorgeous. It was gorgeous. But there was still something slightly wrong. And I knew it. And then we found out that one of the prettiest boys in the school had an incident with him in the music instrument room after school one day. And there was a bit of a hoo-ha. And then he was gone. 3 weeks later, my mum said to me, "Oh, there's something in the News of the World today about Tudor grammar." She said, "Would you like to read it?" I said, "I bloody well would." He was in prison. He was in prison, and he was a complete con man. He was a ditch digger from up north, and a man who span yarns. And he spun a yarn, and he got this job. And he couldn't even play a penny whistle. He couldn't read music. He couldn't sing. He certainly couldn't play the piano. And it looked as though he had a thing for boys. But the reason I'm grateful to him is because it's just the most fantastic little event and story and taught me more about what people can do, because he gave Mrs. Hiscock, the secretary lady, her greatest moment.
Bless her.
She stood there in a sapphire blue gown, the Christmas Carol concert of 1968, and I just felt for her because this was a moment in her life, Mrs. Hiscock. He must have gone round saying, can any of the women staff sing? And somebody had said no, but I think that Hilda, her name was. I think Hilda. I've heard her humming occasionally. So what did this guy do? This guy did some fantastic things and some awful things, but then ended up in the News of the World and in prison. 3 years he got. I forget what for. So there's a standout teacher. Am I right or am I right? 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 How about yourself listening? Peter Collins has a final thought for the day, because he says today will soon be tomorrow. So, never miss a moment to think that you have done in your life, just because you know what, Tommy, people might just forget. Don't understand a word of that, Peter. If you do get a moment before today becomes tomorrow, you might like to clarify your last email. Very grateful. You're listening to Play Radio UK. It's Play 2. It's talk from 8 until midnight with Tommy and Fiona, and this evening we have Sarah.
PlayRadioUK.com, part of the Something Corporation. PlayRadioUK.com is dedicated to providing you with a fully interactive website and music service. Choose from 13 stations playing all kinds of music 24 hours a day. Find answers to your technical questions. Podcast your favourite shows. Download content to your mobile phone. Interact with other users in our forum. Buy music from your favourite artists and find out who's on when and what we're up to. PlayRadioUK.com. Internet radio your way.
In 1764, Henry J. Podcast invented the bestest way of catching up on all the show loveliness you couldn't be bothered to catch live. The podcast, as it is now known, has since become popular with royalty, inmates, and the occasional zoo animal. If you have missed any of our audio transmissions, such as Tommy Boy, Mike Mendoza, or the Sunday Roast, then fear not, brave radio warrior. Just go to playradiouk.com/podcast and download them for free in your own time, and then put them on your computer or MP3 player. Consider yourself a lucky listener and download the tremendous podcastiness now. PlayRadioUK.com/podcast, making the unmissable catch-upable.
My dad knows how to keep my mum sweet. He logged on to Play Radio UK and treated her to some amazing Swarovski jewellery from the Scala Jewellery. My mum's so lucky because the Scala Jewellery designed all their jewellery in the UK, and then it's handmade in Italy with Swarovski stones. They design jewellery for celebrities and royalty too. It's probably the best costume jewellery in the world. So come on all you dads, go to playradiouk.com and click on the Scala Jewellery today.
Broadcasting live to the UK. News, information, entertainment, and the best music from the past 40 years. This is Play 2 UK. Tommy Boyd. Call 01243 55 60 60. Email studio@playradiouk.com. Skype play.radio.uk. Now, live from the south coast of England, The Tommy Boyd Show, only on Play 2 UK.
A little bit of housekeeping for tomorrow, looking ahead. Steve Paul will be here from 8 until 10. Now, this is a departure from our usual Tuesday lineup, but Steve is a man that I want you listening hello to get to know, because I and lots of people here think that he's rather special. He's a man with very well thought out and beautifully presented, compartmentalised views about everything. He's the most beautifully opinionated man I think I've come across for a long time. Well, except myself, of course. But he's going to be here from 8 until 10. So I was going to say be nice to him, but don't, if you don't feel like it, don't be nice to him. He's quite happy. He can look after himself. They call him Big Steve in South London, and yeah, he can look after himself. But I'm looking forward to hearing what he wants to talk about tomorrow and what he has to say on what it is he wants to talk about. So that's between 8 and 10, and then it'll be Fiona and myself and you listening hello from 10 until midnight. Email has come in. It's quite a poignant one, and although the person who sent it hasn't said please don't read out my name, I'll just read it out without attaching the name, but you know who you are if you're a podcast. Well, you are a podcaster. It says, I've just got in for my night shift, and I had to email you regarding last Thursday's show where you sat in for Mike, which I listened to via podcast on my MP3 player via FM transmitter to my truck radio. I was so moved by your heartfelt emotions about parenting, especially about the cases you quoted and others like them, one of which isn't too many miles from where I live and have relatives living even closer. That I also got emotional and had to pull over several times to allow it to subside to enable me to carry on my job in a safe and professional manner. It also brought back bad memories of an incident that I witnessed in my parents' home when I was about 6 or 7 years old. On one Saturday morning, my not long married brother and his wife came to visit with their daughter, my niece, of 8-10 weeks, whom I love very much and got great joy at being able to hold, etc. After a little while, there was just myself, my sister-in-law and my niece in the living room, and my niece was crying and crying. And my sister-in-law seemed unable to calm her down and subsequently got more and more worked up with my niece, that she ended up throwing her several feet, where she luckily landed on a soft armchair. I screamed at her to stop, but to no avail, and when I told others, was not believed, and at one point I was told it was an accident. Anyway, they didn't visit much after that. Then by the time she was 3 months old, she died at her home in her cot, to which I got two versions. One was cot death, which at that age didn't know anything about, and secondly, pneumonia. This has stayed with me all this time. I've repeatedly blamed myself for her death, because I can't prove if something very wrong happened in that bedroom. I know my brother doted on his daughter and grieved badly, and what seemed to me at that time a short period of time, they split up and then divorced, and to this day I've not seen or known of where my sister-in-law is. Tommy, this story might seem as brutally as tragic as the cases you discussed, but it brought home this moment that has always been in the back of my mind and brought me back to tears once again, even as I type this email. I now have two wonderful children myself, a son just turned 18 and at college, and beautiful daughter aged 9, who's 10 in 2 weeks, and I work tirelessly to be the best parent I possibly can. All the while my wife was pregnant, we both read as much as we could about parenting and children to hopefully help us to be good parents. Thank you very much, Tommy, for enabling me to talk about this, even if it's only via email. Apologies for any misspelling or bad grammar, and please pass my best wishes and a speedy recovery to Mike. Never had an email quite like that before. Because me and you, Fiona, and this chap listening, and the listener listening as well, I think got a pretty good idea from this actually extremely well written and eloquent email of what this person has been through, and will continue to put themselves through probably for the rest of their lives. That's the kind of traumatic event, isn't it, or succession of events that will never leave you.
No.
But I mean, if I were able to talk to this guy, I would say, wouldn't you, try not to blame yourself, try not to feel any guilt that you might have done something, because as a child, he says he was 7 or 8. Nobody listens nobody listens to 7 or 8 year olds now, much less 20 or 30 years ago. And some good has come from it, and this is somehow common. Some good has come of it, in that I suspect that he decided to be an even better parent because of what he saw than he would have been. I suspect he'd have been a great parent anyway, but he's gone that extra mile with everything. And so there are 2 happier children in the world than there might have been. That's sometimes how good comes out of bad. Yeah. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it? But you still don't want bad, do you?
No.
Happy Tree emails. There's one teacher, we talked about teachers earlier, Tamsin it was, who said, talk about teachers on the show. And Happy Tree says, there's one teacher I had who marked me for life, in that now, as I walk the teaching path myself, I try to model myself on Dr. Keith Foley at Strathclyde University. He was unwittingly responsible for me ending up doing French in the first place. I'd originally intended to do psychology, but I had one subject left to pick, and he happened to be sitting next to my own class advisor. He leaned over and told me I'd be good at French. And now, it wasn't all that scary, really. Little did I know what was about to unfold before me. He remained a kind of a guiding figure in the background during my whole time there, and I found it very fitting that he should end up being my final year tutor. He was such a fan of my work, and that meant a lot to me. He was brilliant and very humble and approachable. This openness is definitely something I consciously try to integrate into my own work. I see it as a kind of personal mission to try to dispel students' fears of professors and sweep up the stifling stuffiness that can hang heavy in the halls of academy. A couple of years ago, I went back to talk to him to tell him directly what effect he'd had on me, but to my great dismay, I found I'd left it too late. And he died from a brain tumour the year before. He still represents to me an ideal to which I will always aspire. If he's listening up there, you did good work, Keith. God bless you. Good email. Yes, I've got this mate. I owe him his belt back, but I don't know where he is in the world. I almost track him down occasionally because Google is very good. His name is Albert van Everbroek. And he taught me to be a dolphin trainer, but he taught me more than that. He taught me about how to smoke, how to drink Stella properly, how to get off with the most gorgeous woman in the world. He was a real character, Albert. There was nothing of him. He was stick thin. He was Belgian. I'm very proud of Belgium because he said that all the best Frenchmen are Belgians, and he listed them all, and they were, you know. And he got married and went to Australia, and I went drinking with him the night before he was due, and then I went to Heathrow Airport with him to see him off to Australia. And standing there, he gave me his belt. Now, this doesn't sound like much, does it? But this belt is a leather belt embossed with dolphins, beautifully embossed with dolphins.
Right.
And it's clasped by a silver buckle, which I say it's a buckle. It's about 4 or 5 inches across and an inch high, and it's solid silver. And it's got his initials, AJJ, embossed in the middle of it, with a little sort of design around it.
And he gave it to you?
It's worth a fortune.
Is it?
In silver alone.
Right.
And he gave it to me. He used to call me lovely boy. He said, "Here you are, lovely boy." He said, "I want you to have my belt." I said, "No, Albert, don't be ridiculous. That's your belt, man. That is your belt."
How old was he?
30 when he went.
I mean, compared to you.
I was about 12 years younger than him, and he's one of those older men that if you can have as a mate, they'll teach you things, you know, and it's great.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm reminded of it after reading out Happy Tree's excellent email is because, you know, I really want to meet him.
Yeah.
I don't want to find out one day that Albert van Everbroek has gone before, as they say, safely gathered in, passed away, gone to that great dolphinarium in the sky.
Then isn't it best not to try to find out?
I want to give him his belt back. I've got his belt. My boys wear his belt a lot. It's great.
Yeah, but you have to consider the fact that it might already be too late, and then wouldn't that be too upsetting to find out?
Look,
so I think some ways it's best not to know.
I say to myself, look, he gave me his belt. That's because he wanted to. He doesn't want it back. If he wanted it back, he wouldn't have given it to me.
No.
But you know what I'm saying? It's about this thing about making sure you say what you need to say.
Yeah.
Before it's too late.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I've wondered about it, you see, because supposing if I was knocked down by a bus, there are lots of things I'd need to have said to people, but I can't say because I'm alive. And they'd go, "What are you telling me this for?" And I'd go, "Well, because I could walk under a bus tomorrow." And they go, "Yeah, but what are you telling me for this?" You know?
So what are you saying?
Well, I was thinking of setting up a website, and it was going to be called something like Famous Last Words, or or what you wish you'd said before you died. And
I think it's already been done.
oh, bugger, is it? Well, I'm not thinking of it as a money-making thing. So what, you can put a message on it to your loved ones in case you fall under a bus.
Yeah.
Well, what's to stop them sending it before you go? Do you have to keep refreshing?
I don't know.
Such a funny phrase, that, isn't it? You know, refresh here. You click it and you think to yourself, you're going to get a nice cool shower. No, you don't. Refresh. Anyway, email comes in from Chris, who says, I'll get back to that later. Thank you for that, Chris.
But surely the things that you would want to say to people,
Yeah.
you should be saying them anyway, shouldn't you? Why don't we say things to them? I mean, what are you referring to exactly? Just
My loved ones and my children.
yeah.
My children.
But what would you say? You would tell them how much you love them.
If I was to say to them the things that I would say, knowing that they would be reading it after I had died, whilst they're alive, they would be worried that I'd got something terminal, or that I would flip my lid.
But you know what you could do?
Go on.
What all of us could do is actually put those things into a letter,
Yeah.
and then,
Where do you leave it?
well, with your will.
I don't want to update it a lot, you see, and if I wrote it when my children were 8 and 10, you see, I did once. I was going off to work in Africa, and it was a bad time. The world was in great turmoil, and I'm on my way to the airport, and I realised that I hadn't written a will, and so in that car from Brighton to Gatwick, I wrote my will,
Right.
and I got the taxi driver to witness it. He was very reluctant, this bloke. He was black himself. I think he was African. I don't know. A very nice fella. But his English was less than perfect. And so I sat in the back of this thing and I wrote, I left lots of people lots of things. I left James Baker, who's now sort of number 3 at Sky TV, I left him my flying jacket. No, I didn't. No, I left him 500 quid to make sure that everybody I worked with had a bloody good piss up somewhere. And I left, I left various things. And I got him to sign it. And he was, what is this? I go, no. What? And then he signed it, and I know it wasn't his real signature.
And Mickey Mouse.
And then I posted it, you see. I posted it to my wife inside another envelope saying, don't open this. I think I said something like, don't open this unless. Pretty harrowing thing to do.
Yeah.
And I came back. I had a scrape when I was out there, but I came back. But what I didn't include in that was anything loving or meaningful. But if I had have done, I think that will is still alive. If I had have done, it would have been dated by now.
Yeah.
Because I only had one son at the time, so the second son would have felt very left out. Have you written something like this?
No. No, I haven't.
The other thing is you don't want to tempt fate. Writing a will is bad enough. If I started to tell my 2 sons what I thought of them, I'd be up all night. Wouldn't you?
There's got to be a way of doing it, though.
You can't just say, I love you a lot. I'm very proud of you. Can you? You've got to say more than that. You've got to say something eloquent like, you know, my life almost began when you came into it. Or, you know, I'm proud. And then you want to encourage them, so you want them to be strong, happy, caring. So you write, you know, I have always admired your strength, intelligence and capacity for care, because that's what your way of going, you know, carry on being like that.
But why do we always feel the need to have that last word after we've gone?
My wife lost her dad in a terrible thing, and never had a chance to have any of those conversations. And it's the lack of goodbye is a part of it. It is a part of it. If somebody dies suddenly, and my dad died suddenly, and we'd said everything because we got very close as he got old.
But that's what I'm trying to get at. You know, I think we should. It's all wonderful words, but why don't we have those conversations with our loved ones while they are here, knowing that one day we probably will or won't get a chance to say goodbye.
Yes. Well, look, I'm not going to fall out with you over this one. But I will say that I agree with you that we could express our love and our affection for people, whoever they are, more often and with greater strength. But we still can't.
I know, because this is what I'm saying, but why do we?
No, but we can't. We can't express goodbye.
No.
When we're alive.
No.
When we're here. If you pass away with something slowly, which in fact is what all of us are doing, but we tend to deny that in ourselves. At least you do have a chance to say, right, now the time has come for me to say some sort of a goodbye, some sort of positive appraisal of my friendship or relationship with a person. But not in the bouncy meaninglessness of a typical tea break. Why? What do you want to say to somebody?
No.
And whom? Who do you want to say something to?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I just find it very. I'm just questioning it.
Yeah.
I'm questioning why, and it is human nature. We all want to do it. We all want to have that last say. I mean, the one thing that we're not able to do, which is to communicate after we've gone, is the one thing that we really, really want to do. Even though we know, it's impossible. Unless we do leave some kind of, but it's just the, it's
a bitch death, isn't it? Really, it is a bitch. I've just been reading some more of my samurai books because they have a wonderful attitude towards it all, which is, they hope to die.
Right.
They hope that every day they'll die. Every day of their lives, the samurai hope to die, and they're ready for it. They are ready. They have done everything they needed to do. They have put their affairs totally in order. Each morning they wake up and hope that today's the day. That not just that they will die, but that they will die well. They will die well, facing whoever or whatever it is that is good enough to kill them.
Right.
Terrific. Absolutely fantastic way to live. Unfortunately, it doesn't work in Chichester. I mean, it's impractical in Chichester, isn't it?
I should think.
Yes. And JJ emails, I'm wondering if you could help me out. Is there a name or psychological word for you for when you directly talk about someone in their presence? For example, imagine you're at a dinner party and a few people are in conversation about a person there present, but not blatantly to them, but using certain nuances and subjects and comments that relate to them. Have you done it or ever twigged someone may be in a discussion about you in a similar circumstance, or am I paranoid? A little bit, I think. Not paranoid, that's a medical term, but a little bit,
You mean that somebody could be talking about...
He hears people at dinner parties talking about somebody, and he wonders whether they're having an in-joke and are talking about him.
Right.
And whether they're all in on it.
Okay.
It's a party game called Mafia.
Is it?
Yes. Have you played Mafia? No. Oh, it's quite good. There needs to be about 12 of you, and then you get the cards, and if there's 12 people playing Mafia, you get the cards and you put 3 black ones, and the rest are red, and one of them's a joker.
Right.
And then people draw their cards, and they look and see what they've got. And if you're black, you're Mafia. If you're red, you're townsfolk.
Okay.
And if you get the joker, you're the mayor.
Right.
Right? And then everybody closes their eyes, except when the mayor goes 1, 2, 3, the Mafia all open their eyes and acknowledge each other. And when if you're Mafia, you open your eyes and you don't know who else is Mafia. Right? So there's 3 of you around the table, and you're Mafia.
Yeah.
Then you close your eyes and nobody knows who's Mafia.
Right.
Okay? Right? And then the conversation proceeds with, as the evening goes on, everybody tried to work out who the mafia are.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, they vote. And everybody has to vote for the same person being the mafia. I've explained it really badly. But the point is, it does begin to introduce some of the kind of paranoias that JJ is suffering from. Because there are conversations going on and you're not quite sure if people think you're mafia. And so they might be having a conversation and it seems to be about you, but they're not explicit.
Yeah.
I've explained this game so shittily. But do you ever think that people might be saying something or doing something and it's aimed at you, but they're not saying so?
Yeah, I mean, that has happened.
Were they?
Don't know.
Don't know.
Don't care.
You did care a bit.
Well, possibly a bit. But have you ever done that thing where there's a room full of people, say a party or something, and you think you can hear somebody talking about you? You think you can hear somebody say your name?
Yes.
Yeah? No. You're looking at me really confused.
No, not exactly that, but one night when I lived in West London, I was going to see a theatre thing. It was quite good, actually. It was called An Inspector Calls. Have you heard of that? It's a very good play. Anyway. And I had about 45 minutes before I had to go to the theatre, which was just round the corner from a pub I knew. And it was myself and a mate, and I had a pint of bitter. It's a cold night. And then I had about another 10 minutes, so I went, I'll have a scotch, go on. So I had a pint of bitter and a scotch.
Yeah.
Right. Went off, saw the play, fine. About 3 nights later, I was standing in another pub in the same part of London.
Yeah.
And I was waiting to get served. And I heard a group of people talking at the table behind me. And I heard there was 3 boys and 3 girls, 3 young men and 3 young women.
Yeah.
And one of the young men went, "I tell you what, I seen that Tommy Boyd last night. He was in the Beehive." And they went, "No." And you went, "Yeah." "And what's he like?" And the bloke went, "He's a right piss artist." And they went, "Is he?" And he went, "Yeah. He had 6 pints, right? 6 pints. And he had a whiskey chaser with all of them." I was standing there at the bar thinking, I guess this is what you do. If you see some geezer vaguely off telly or something and nothing happens, you've got to make something up.
Yeah.
So I got a bit paranoid about that.
Did you say anything?
I was really tempted, but then I thought, no, I'm quite happy to be known as a piss artist, frankly. It's a better story, isn't it, than I seen that geezer off the Magpie or whatever it was, and they go, "What's he like?" And the bloke goes, "He's very ordinary." It's not a story, is it?
No. But when you tempted to turn around and just make eye contact with him?
No, because actually I'm sometimes too kind and I didn't want to embarrass him. No, really. A man and his wife were driving through the country. Do you know, it's time we got the weather.
It is, you're right. You're going to let me do it this time?
Do you want to do it?
Yeah.
Why?
Why not?
Why not's a very poor answer, isn't it, really? Let's do it in order to keep the whole thing structurally authentic.
Play 2 UK weather.
Cold, clear and breezy for much of the time with a touch of frost. Occasional showers, sleety on higher ground, will also affect northern and eastern Scotland, eastern England and the far west of both Wales and Cornwall. Looking on to tomorrow, chilly, breezy and fairly sunny, though still a few showers across eastern England, turning overcast and damp across northwest Scotland during the afternoon and other northern parts during the evening.
You're up to date on Play 2 UK, the Play Radio podcast.
Who started the insults? You called me a rabid radio presenter. You say poor shock jock material. You're such a bad judge of people, you don't know when someone's speaking from the heart. And yet
I don't doubt you're speaking from the heart.
And yet you're a parent.
Except it's coming out your backside before it's left your mouth.
I'll tell you what I think. I think you're feeling vulnerable because you realise that you should have done more work when you were a parent.
Want to hear the rest? Just go to playradiouk.com/podcast.
Here you are, sweetheart. Merry Christmas.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mum. Great. A yak wool jumper. You really shouldn't have. You really shouldn't have. I wish she hadn't. It's the same every year. I wish she'd just go to Universal Posters. They have a fantastic range of approved pictures of some of my favourite celebrities, all digitally signed in their own handwriting. Mum could even have got one personalised just for me. Prices start from $7.99, so don't let your loved ones down this Christmas. Just go to playradiouk.com and click on the Universal Poster banner.
Are you going to give me a hand out in the kitchen then?
Yes, Mum, I'll help you stuff the turkey in a minute. Yeah, with this jumper.
Play Radio UK have teamed up with Virgin Wines to offer you a massive 20% discount off your favourite wines. Visit playradiouk.com and click on the Virgin Wines 20% discount voucher to start saving now and have your favourite wines delivered to your door. Play Radio UK and Virgin Wines for people who love their wine and a great deal. Just log on to playradiouk.com and click on the Virgin Wine 20% discount voucher and start saving today.
Tommy Boyd on Play 2 UK, the original cunning linguist.
We were just talking about smoking and prudishness whilst we were enjoying the wisdom that was compounded in those various important messages, weren't we?
We were, yes.
Yes, we were.
You were saying that because somebody smokes,
yes,
they're not likely to be prude.
No,
a prude.
That's my view on that.
Why? What's the thought behind that?
Well, because there's something decadent about smoking, in intelligent people at least, and something carnal, earthy.
Right. Okay.
Devil may care.
Okay.
And sex has a lot of those qualities. It's carnal for a start.
It is.
And
yeah.
devil may care.
Mm-hmm.
And decadent, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Although you wouldn't tell Catherine Cat that. I don't think she'd care.
No.
Because I think she's probably pretty solid, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, confident about her own views.
Yeah.
And I suspect she hears quite a lot of rubbish from plenty of people. She wouldn't hear what I just said from me, but I bet she has heard it from some people. So, I have this. It's an email from Anne Jones, who says, I think this might make you smile. A man and his wife were driving... It's the Cadillac Balls joke I did last week. It's an email that's come back and repeated. Okay, no worries. Big fan of Play Radio and a fan of yours for many a year, Tom. I listen by podcast, and although I can't listen, this is from Piers, I can't listen live, I get to listen to the whole show without interruption, and you brighten up my journeys to and from work.
Oh, excellent.
I have a couple of suggested topics for the show.
Okay.
And I'd just like you, producer, to put your producer's hat on. The one with the wide brim that just comes down over one eye.
Mm-hmm.
That one. The one with the silk band. There. There it is, and there she sits with it. Anyway. Do men have periods? This is the one of the questions, suggested topics for the show.
Right.
From Piers Montgomery.
Mm-hmm.
Do men have periods? I am convinced that although we don't have the physical symptoms experienced by women, we men also endure cycles in hormonal movement which affects our moods from time to time. What say you?
Okay.
Fiona.
What would that be affected by then? By the levels of testosterone?
Don't say it in such a sneering way. I have never seen you look down your nose
Did I?
with quite so much derision
Did I really?
at the utterance of a single word.
Which word?
Testosterone.
Did I really?
You did. You pulled a testosterone. You could just as easily have been talking about camel bile. Testosterone. No, he's absolutely right. And, of course, the Japanese, as you know, Fiona, I'm an expert on everything, including Japanese medicine.
Except detached houses.
And semi-detached houses. And the Japanese believe that we have biorhythms, men and women, which begin on the day that we're born.
Yeah.
Now, these biorhythms have a 23-day physical cycle, a 28-day emotional cycle, and a 32-day intellectual cycle.
Right.
And because these cycles are of differing durations, they're up and down in different ways.
Yeah.
And a bad day is when you've got one right at the top and the other one right at the bottom.
Right.
Because you're going to be pulled in lots of different directions.
Okay.
A good day is when they're all about in the middle. So what happens is, if your physical cycle on about the 6th or 7th day where you were born, your physical cycle is at its peak, and it begins to go down. And after about 12 days, it passes the meridian line and begins to descend below the line. Then comes back up again and hits the equilibrium line 23 days later.
Right.
Can you see all that?
Yeah.
So if your emotional, physical and intellectual cycles are all passing through the line of equilibrium at the same time, then you're on good form. That's the day to go for an interview.
Right. You can't actually
control it, no.
No.
You can only be aware of it.
Yeah.
And if you went to Earl's Court, to one of those fancy exhibitions that they have on the paranormal and so forth, they'll sell you a little calculator which will tell you I could work out your biorhythms today.
Yeah. Dear.
You're not that bothered.
No, I'm interested.
But do men have periods? Probably not, but we do go in cycles, yes.
Yes, I think so.
Yes. It's mainly to do with the moon, isn't it?
I think so.
Right. When was the last time you cried? Piers says.
Me personally.
He's suggesting it as a topic.
Oh, okay.
At my 6-year-old daughter's recent birthday party, one of the boys in her class came up to me at the end of the party and said thank you. He clearly had what I would describe as mild to moderate learning disabilities. The boy wrapped his arms around me and gave me a genuine loving hug and insisted on a kiss on the cheek. In fact, he wouldn't let me go until I obliged, feeling slightly uncomfortable but at the same time hugely humble. I caught his mother's eye and we exchanged a smile. She knew that this was his usual behaviour, and I immediately felt assured about the situation that I found myself in. On reflection, I thought about that little boy and his mother. I thought what a kind and loving son she had. None of the other children had been so keen to make an effort to say thank you, even though they had enjoyed the party. Then I thought about all the challenges he'll have to face as he goes through life. His disabilities weren't as severe as many children, but were probably severe enough to have an impact on his life and the opportunities open to him, with things like prejudice and bullying to contend with. And yet, inside that child, there is a heart of solid gold. As you would have said, Tommy, what a boy. The thought of the mountains he'll have to climb as he grows up made me cry. And think how lucky I've been in life. I don't think I will forget that for some time. To finish on something brighter, I have a joke to raise a smile. Apparently, if you've heard it before, here goes. Apologies if you heard it before, here goes. Apparently, 1 in 5 people in the world are Chinese. And there are 5 people in my family. So, it must be one of them. It's either my mum, or my dad, or my older brother Colin, or my younger brother Ho Shang Shui. But I think it's Colin.
Very good.
I thought Tommy told that one well. He does sometimes tell jokes well, doesn't he? Well, he used to be a comedian, you know.
Did he? I thought he was a journalist. Oh, is that as well? And an animal trainer? Yes. And a teacher? Really? Yes. Was he on television? No, I don't think so. He was for about 15 bloody years. But he's done a lot of radio, hasn't he? Yes, he did all sorts of different things as well. He's done sport and phoning. I think he was on Channel 5's baseball programme as the host of that, really. Wasn't he fucking schizophrenic?
I am.
Did you host Gladiators as well?
I never got asked to do that one, no. Do you know, it's funny, I hosted every children's television programme that was on between 1977 and 1991, with the exception of number 73. And when people come they always say, well, wasn't you good on number 73? Which I've never got that. I've never got that. I've been asked if I've been on number 73 more than any of the programmes I've been on. I don't understand it. I think it's because the guy who went on to do Art Attack does look a bit like me. Neil Buchanan. Yeah, nice man. Can't draw. Can't draw.
Can't he?
No. I know. He was a guest of mine on some TV thing once, and the script was lying around, and I saw him get a pen out, and I thought, well, this is going to be good. And it was sort of like a stick man he drew. I was very disappointed. Anyway, where are we? That's a good email from Piers. Thank you very much.
We've got Oscar on Skype.
Outstanding. Good day.
Hello, Tommy.
Oscar.
Hi. I suppose the thing about the periods is it more interesting to ask why don't animals have periods? How come we're practically the only animals on this earth that actually have periods? You don't see cats and dogs sometimes walking down the streets with a big trail of blood behind them, do you? It's just, what is so different about us? Why?
Well, I think we... when my dog is on heat, there's sometimes quite a lot of blood in the kitchen on the floor in the morning. So I guess that her period, she has about 1 or 2 a year. But there's nothing quite like the same sort of... She gets a little bit upset and emotional and worried and gets tummy ache, I would imagine, badly. But, you know, you raise an interesting point. I don't know whether mammals, apart from man, do have periods. I would imagine monkeys do, gorillas and things, wouldn't they?
I think I'm right in saying that some of the very sort of higher forms of apes do, to some extent, have periods, but below that... animals really don't. As you say, they go on heat, and it's almost like the process of going on heat in humans has been replaced by having periods, and by having periods, women don't go on heat. Which is, I suppose, I don't know, perhaps it would be better if women did go on heat once a month, I don't know, but...
Well, when my dog's on heat, there's another dog who lives at least nearly a mile away from us called Guinness. And he knows. And he will come. They have to lock him in when my dog's on heat. I've seen him run across 2 fields. Get out of his garden and run across 2 fields. 2 fields he can smell my dog on heat.
Very powerful thing, I know. Incidentally, the Skype has improved, I think, hasn't it? There's a new download. I don't know if people have downloaded the latest version of Skype, but is the audio sounding okay?
It sounds as though you sat next to me.
Right. Was Catherine talking to you via Skype earlier on, or was she on something else?
That was her Skype debut. What did you think?
Oh, yeah, it sounded very good, yeah. Are you able to conference people on Skype with her if she's on Skype? I didn't know really whether...
That's the plan. Would you be interested in having a chat with her sometime?
Yeah, I was sort of tempted to call in, but it's like you're listening, and it's interesting to listen, and sometimes you think, well, it's so interesting listening that I don't really want to break off my attention from listening to make a call. But there were a couple of things I wanted to perhaps ask her about, particularly with the these proposed changes in the law. That they say that it's supposedly about trafficking, and I was interested to ask her about just how many women she thinks that are currently working as prostitutes are actually working as prostitutes against their will. I know she probably wouldn't know for sure, but as someone who works in the industry and has lots of contacts, she might have an interesting view on that. Maybe she would have a more informed opinion as to what the percentage would be. It's my opinion, I suppose, that the vast majority of prostitutes are working as prostitutes because they choose to work as prostitutes. So I wanted to sort of ask her about that. She was quite forthcoming, I think, with a lot of stuff, wasn't she? But the one thing that she didn't know was the thing about... well, I think somebody asked, how can you tell if a woman fancies you?
Yeah.
And she didn't seem to know much about that. She said, well, that's one thing I don't really know, which perhaps is a little bit surprising. I think that's what the question was meant to be, wasn't it? Was it meant to be, how can I tell if a woman wants to jump my bones?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you see, we go looking for answers about sex and romance right through our lives, actually. But when we're younger, and particularly for young men, I suspect, I might be wrong, it might be for both gender, there are occasions when we just desperately want any solid answer to any of the many, many questions that we've got. And if there is a clue, that means if you look out for it, you're more likely to be accepted if you ask somebody out, or go to make the first kiss, or say, would you like to come back to my place, or can I drive you to a secluded lay-by. If you knew or had some idea that there are some signals you can look for in order not to get rebuffed, then you'd fall on them hungrily, wouldn't you? And not many men get an opportunity to talk about sex, romance, or subtle psychological aspects of it like this with a woman. And so I guess that was why the emailer in question asked it. Well, it was actually a caller who came on before her who asked if I would ask her that. But I suspect she does have her thoughts on it, but then again, she doesn't spend much time romancing women.
Sure. I do have 5 ways here, supposedly, of being able to tell if a woman is into you. I think this is not meant to be the more lustful physical thing. This is more like people looking for something a bit more long-term and romantic rather than the jumping of the bones. But apologies if this seems a little bit sort of local radio, but 5 ways of knowing if a woman is into you.
Okay.
And this is kind of when you're in some sort of a social situation. What the signals would be that would tell you that this woman is interested in pursuing things a little bit further. Number 1 would be that she freshens up a lot. If she's spending a lot of time taking care of her appearance, maybe nipping off and to powder her nose fairly frequently and making a fuss over her clothes and her makeup and that sort of thing, that's meant to be an indication that she's obviously interested.
Okay.
Number 2, during the conversation, if she's interested in your family,
yeah,
that's an indication that she's got more sincere and long-term intentions. I suppose it speaks for itself, really.
I can see that.
Wants to know a little bit about your background. And number 3, she's attentive. If she's actually paying attention to the conversation that she's having with you and not getting easily distracted by the stuff that's going on around her eyes and not gazing and flicking around at all the people coming in and going out, and she's not looking at her watch, she's actually gazing into your eyes and paying attention. That's obviously an indication that she's riveted by your personality and interested in getting to know more about you. Another one, number 4, I suppose this is an obvious one as well, but it's a kind of a nice one in a way. I like this one. And that's the touchy-feely thing. If she's touchy-feely during the conversation, you get those little moments where she reaches out and touches you on the arm or touches you on the leg even during the course of the conversation, and a little bit of a laugh and hee-hee, and you get that little touch, then obviously that's an indication that this woman is into you. And if you asked her out, asked her for a date or something, you're going to get a positive response, very likely. And number 5 is if she lingers longer, if she hangs around, she doesn't make the excuses to disappear as soon as possible. And any little suggestion of things that you could do to prolong the time that you're going to be together on this encounter. If she hangs around and seems happy to hang around, then obviously that's an indication that the woman is into you. So I think that's 5 nice little indicators there. and Oscar succeeding where Kat didn't quite.
Okay. You must ring her up next week and talk to her. I think it would. I'd love to listen to the conversation. And also, we do need somebody, and it's going to be you, to just pioneer the conference call with Catherine as well.
At some point, I wouldn't mind, perhaps offering her a little bit of a more robust challenge to what she does, because you're all very sycophantic with the lady, and I understand that. She's obviously very eloquent, and she knows where she stands on things, and that's always good. But I think there are opposite points of view, and might be interesting to explore those at some stage and see whether
to be honest with you, and to reveal my hand here, I'm quite grooming Catherine to have a slot of her own. And therefore, as a colleague of hers, it would be inappropriate of me to step over the mark of mutual respect that you always have with people that you work with in any circumstance, but certainly on the air. And I happen to instinctively believe that she is morally not only sound, but probably superior to the likes of, me for sure. And so I've just decided, again, semi-consciously, that I'm not going to confront her in any way, shape or form unless she comes out, for example, and tells me that she is a West Ham supporter, in which case she will get shit.
Okay, I think sometimes...
fair enough, isn't it? See what I'm saying?
Sometimes you can get away with a little bit more coming in as a caller and putting these very opposing views to somebody.
I would love to hear you cross swords with her. That would be great. Yeah. But it's not my job as sort of facilitator in this.
I understand
in this circumstance. As far as your points go, that's very interesting. How you can tell whether a woman is interested. But I just want to throw this back to Fiona, and ask her, how do you think what things do you think women look for to see whether a man is interested in them? Because there's always the eye contact thing, isn't it? But that's fairly much a given.
Yeah, eye contact.
Is there a piece of body language? Can you tell when a man's made a slight effort? Do you look for things like that?
Oh God, this is a really difficult one to answer because there are all sorts of little things, isn't there? But I think also
we need a girls' show as well, don't we? Where we can hear you women just talking about us as if we're not there. That's what I'd like to hear.
Yeah,
that's what I'd like to hear. But Oscar, we've almost hit the deadline. Thank you for your call. You're going to maybe give us a Skype in when Catherine's on next week?
Yeah, I'll hopefully do that. Are you doing the thing tomorrow? Are you still taking calls about media tomorrow in the 10 till 12 spot?
Absolutely. It's a running theme.
Sure. I mean, there was some stuff that I wanted to say last week about that, but it was quite busy, I think, when you had the conversation about radio and stuff. So there are things that perhaps I could chip in.
Well, you know what? There are certain subjects that everybody's an expert on. Being school is one of them because we all went to school. Motoring is another because almost everybody drives, and certainly everybody has experiences on the road, even if it's as a pedestrian. But the media now is just so plays just such a big part in our lives, not just television and radio, but now you've got everything that the internet and mobile phones and what have you has to offer, that we're all entitled to believe we're experts, I think, don't you?
Yeah. Is this guy here on his own, or there on his own tomorrow for the first 2 hours? Steve, what's his name? Steve Paul.
Big Steve is going to be here with Fiona. Will be here, and he's got a sidekick called Alison, who will be here. And I'm just interested to see how he takes to it, because he's not done much of this kind of thing, and I'm always keen to foster new talent, and I want to see how he does. I want to see if he enjoys it. I think he has the potential to be extremely good. I mean, extremely good. But he's never done anything like this before. So it's going to be really interesting just from that point of view. Because everybody who's never done this sort of thing before can take a listen to Steve Paul and see how he does it and think to themselves, yeah, the guy is phenomenal. Or, hey, I could do that. So lots of ways of enjoying something like that.
Sounds like an interesting experiment. I look forward to it.
Well played, fella. Talk to you soon.
Okay, cheers.
Thanks for your time.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.
We missed an ad break, didn't we? At 22.
Ah, that one, yes. We'll do it now, because these are the important messages.
PlayRadioUK.com, part of the Something Corporation. Go to PlayRadioUK.com now and play Blackjack for real money and get a $200 bonus when you sign up. Just click on the 888.com banner on our website now at PlayRadioUK.com.
Here she is, my sexy new MP4 player from City-Sales. The latest technology giving me music and video wherever I go in a range of stunning colors, all for just £60. And here are her matching speakers. Gorgeous! Plus picture keyrings, audio-visual baby monitors. Oh, she's so cute. And the baby's kind of nice too. The hottest audio-visual equipment straight to your door. Just visit city-sales.co.uk. City-Sales. Looking good, sounding great.
You say poor shock jock material. You're such a bad judge of people you don't know when someone's speaking from the heart. And yet
I don't doubt you're speaking from the heart.
And yet you're a parent.
Except it's coming out your backside before it's left your mouth.
I'll tell you what I think. I think you're feeling vulnerable because you realise that you should have done more work when you were a parent, when you were starting out.
Did I?
Yeah, what books did you read before you became a parent?
You know what?
Tommy Boyd, Mondays and Tuesdays, 8 p.m, Play 2 UK.
Tommy Boyd on Play 2 UK, a supersong of sanctity in a weird and wacky world.
No, don't worry, I'm still here. It's all right. I was just discussing something with Fiona, which was the state of audio in the studio, because we're not quite sure whether the time, you see, we've just about run out of time, and yet we believe we still have some more important messages that you will enjoy listening to in just a moment's time. That's about it. Remember, Steve Paul debuts tomorrow night from 8 o'clock until 10, with Fiona, who will be here, and Alison as well, and then it's myself and Fiona from 10 until 2. We'll be talking about media, as Oscar just...
Until 2.
Did I say 10 till 2? Are you there?
You'll be here on your own till 2.
Thank God. Thank God. An early night tonight. Mind you, I haven't... Well, what do you do when you get home? You get home at what? 12:30, 1:45, don't you? 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock?
About 1:45.
Bloody hell. What, do you go to bed or...?
Fall into bed.
Do you? Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Got to be done.
Well, I sometimes go up to the top of our house. I call it Narnia. And, because you just have to go through this sort of wardrobe door to get up there. But anyway, with either a can of beer or a glass of wine.
Yeah, it's all right if you haven't got to be up at 6 tomorrow, which I do.
All right then, let's crack on. Thanks very much indeed for your company. If you're podcasting this, remember it's never too late to email studio@playradiouk.com.